Hello, my friends. I hope that you're doing well. I want to talk to you today. If you're someone who missed the cutoff for DACA, or perhaps you applied for DACA and were denied, and otherwise, like you went to high school, maybe even, and you're feeling pretty frustrated that for my life, and because I don't have a social security number or I don't have a work permit, I'm really stuck. I, number one, just want to start off by saying I am so sorry that our country hasn't been able to figure this out and get you your green card. But what I want to give you in this episode is a little bit of hope and some context to where if this is a situation that's applied to you or someone you know, maybe they qualify for a green card without having to have DACA. Maybe you qualify for getting your work permit without getting married. And that's what this podcast is about. So let's go. All right, let's jump right in. We are going to talk about if you don't have DACA, what are some ways for you to get your green card, for you to be able to fix in the US? And I want to start by saying, let's assume you don't want to get married for papers, right? So, number one, as an immigration lawyer, I can never advise you to get married for an immigration benefit. Like you would need to get married for love and also for, if there's a secondary benefit, great. But let's say you don't want to get married. Let's say that you have had all the proposals in the world, but this is not for you. You do not want to get married. And everyone you've talked to in the past has told you basically that you need to marry a US citizen. You're going to have to consular process with a waiver, and that's just going to be the way it is. Let's say you don't want to do that. And that's what this podcast is about, in particular today. So here's how this will work. You need to do something. You either need to have a parent with status, and perhaps we can do something called VAWA, but the most likely option available to you is going to be either a U visa or a T visa. Now, you may have heard of a U visa before. U visas for immigrants who've been victims of violent crime in the United States, and they've been helpful to the police to the extent that they were necessary to help in the investigation of this crime. Usually that involves reporting it and helping the police, explain who the attacker was or something like that. That's a U visa. Those are relatively, I think that they're pretty popular. Lots of people have talked about them. So what I want to spend most of our time on today is a T visa. T visas are really robust and really diverse and a very helpful tool for a lot of people. And here, let me start with kind of the benefits. And I want to start by saying, if you are married, you can still get a T visa. If you're divorced, you can still get a T visa. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you're married. But if you don't want to go through the VAWA process, or you can't because you have not been married, the T visa is great because even if you're married to someone who's also undocumented like you can help them with this process. So here's the deal. You don't have to get married to get a T visa. You don't leave the United States. You do the whole process here. Unlike with a U visa that's taking upwards of about 15 to 20 years to complete the process because of the quota, a T visa also has a quota, but that quota has never historically been reached, which means that the process is immediate. So within a year, more or less, of filing your T visa at New Frontier Immigration Law, we have a 100% success rate, and we've gotten right around the year to 14-month point for all of our clients who we filed for T visas. We've gotten approvals for this. I believe this wait. I believe that in the next 5 years, we're going to start seeing the quota get hit. I believe people are going to figure out about T visas, and that's wonderful. That's what this podcast is for. I want everyone to know about a T visa. But once everybody knows about T visas, they're going to become like U visas, and there will be a very long line in order to get them. So it's best to act now rather than wait and apply later. So let me tell you a little bit about some scenarios about how maybe a T visa could apply for your specific case. I'm going to describe if you are, 25 years old, you graduated high school in the US, you went to college, but because DACA was put on hold, you weren't able to apply and receive DACA. So now you're faced with the options of either I get married or I live undocumented and I'm unable to have the career that I want to have. I'm unable to get federal loans because I don't have a social security number. So I can't go to higher education colleges. You really feel stuck. If you've worked somewhere where the T visa, the T visa may help you through your work experiences. If you've worked somewhere and your boss has yelled at you, your boss has told you that you have to do the work or you're going to be fired. And what are you going to do? You're undocumented anyway. If you've been threatened that if you don't continue working in sometimes difficult circumstances, like maybe it's really hot in the kitchen that you work in, or you're cleaning houses and you're not able to go to the bathroom all day long because you're not allowed to use the bathrooms at the places that you're cleaning, really kind of frankly degrading treatment. Those are all the symptoms of a T visa. And I want to be very clear that I'm not saying you have a T visa because I have not met you, dear listener. However, what I can say is those are all the symptoms. This is like a WebMD moment where you enter the symptoms and it gives you all these different possible illnesses that you have. If you tell me that you've been yelled at by a boss, perhaps you're not being paid the actual minimum wage, you're not getting paid if you work overtime, you have to work 6 or 7 days a week, mandatory, it's not an option for you. Any of those types of things, all of those tell me we should have a conversation about a T visa because you may qualify. Similarly, if you've been in an abusive relationship, either with your parents or a romantic partner, or even a sibling, an aunt or an uncle, anyone who's been verbally or physically or emotionally abusive of you, it's very possible and frankly, very likely that you have a T visa available to you. And now I know that you may be thinking, what I experienced was a long time ago and it wasn't that bad. But here's what I want to say to that voice that's dismissing what you went through. It doesn't matter that it was a long time ago. And it doesn't really matter if you think it was that bad or if you think it was terrible. What we want to know is if you meet the legal requirements for a T visa. And that is very objective. The law is the law is the law. And so your personal feelings about it, don't let them get in the way and complicate a pretty regimented system. Instead, what I would urge you to do is contact us so we can do an actual intake call with you and decide if you have a T visa. Another voice in your head that may be kind of talking to you right now will be saying, but I don't want to report him or her or my aunt or my uncle or whoever this was. I don't want to have to report them. And what I'll say is that of all the T visas that we have done, none of the people who have been, we have to talk to law enforcement. We send them a notice that explains what happened to you. None of the law enforcement has investigated not a single one of these to the point of contacting the abuser. So they have talked to a couple of our clients and come into our office, or we've met them at a neutral place and talked to our clients in the very initial stages of filing these T visas. But no one has ever contacted the person who did these bad things to you. So that really is it's an understandable concern and understandable fear, especially if you've forgiven that person. But nothing is going to happen to them from what we can tell of filing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these cases, because it's just simply not a resource that the federal government or even state government has available to it right now. But here's what you will get. With the T visa, you're put on a path to a green card. You can petition for your spouse or your kids. In some cases, you can petition for your parent or even your adult children. And in some cases, although they're pretty rare, you could even petition for your grandkids. And it doesn't matter what country they live in. So if you're 25 years old and want to petition for your parent and they still live in Mexico and you haven't seen that parent in a long time, depending on what the facts of your case are, you may be able to petition for your parent in Mexico. So it can be it could be if they're here in the US too, they don't have to be in Mexico. I'm just using that as an example to show how powerful this tool is. You do not have to leave the country in order to fix your status and get your green card or your visa. Instead, it's a work permit and approval notice that is sent to you if you get approved. Okay. You get your social security number. And 3 years later, you're able to apply for your green card. And in some cases, you can apply for your green card even sooner. You can also travel while you're waiting for your green card petition to be approved. So after you get your T visa approval, you can leave the country and go visit family, for example, and lawfully re-enter the country. So you all of a sudden will just go from really having limited options to having a ton of options. Now, if you've experienced domestic violence, or if perhaps, you were in a relationship where your spouse, your partner, your sibling, your aunt, your uncle, a family member, like maybe you were nannying for someone when you were young, if they control your food, if they control where you go when you go there, if they held your passport, if they didn't allow you to take the bus without your permission, without their permission, all of these things are, again, symptoms of a T visa. So if any of this starts to make you think, wow, this might be me, and this is for people who, if you have an H-1B or a TN visa or a student visa, and you're here in the country, a J-1 visa, anything like that, if you're an au pair, this can apply to you too. Any of this, if someone is controlling you, usually with your immigration status, and making you do some type of work for them, then we start to go into, maybe they're saying you owe me money and you're never gonna be able to pay this debt off. You're working and working and working. You can't get them paid off. Anything like that, you may have a T visa, and you should call me at New Frontier Immigration Law. We're one of the leading experts on T visas in the United States, and we would love to be able to help you. In fact, I'm writing a book on this exact subject for the hundreds of thousands of people who, should have had DACA, but the program has basically been paused indefinitely. And I want to help all of you young folks, you young people, be able to get your green card. And you know what? Maybe you weren't able to get DACA, but maybe something better was waiting for you. Maybe it was a T visa. Reach out to me if you want to talk any further.